Hello and welcome to week 4. My name is Mildred. This week we look at 5 foundational CSS tools for controlling element styling, position, layout, and visibility. We'll start with the outline property. Now the outline is like a line that is drawn outside of the border of an element, and this is just done to create something like a standout effect. It does not take up space and does not affect the box model. It doesn't also affect the layout. So we have this button on the web page, and let's say we want to create an outline around the button. We write the outline property first. So we'll use a class selector. So let's call this button focus, and we use the outline property like this, outline. This is a shorthand property for outline style, outline color, outline width. Okay, so we'll specify the width first, how thick we want the line to be. We'll specify the style that we want. There are several styles: dashed, dotted, double, just same values we have for the border. So let's say we want it dotted, and then the color for the outline, let's say we want red. Alright, so when I come to my HTML page and I add that here to class focus on the button and I refresh my web page, we're going to see an outline outside of the border or outside of the button. Now we did this using the shorthand outline property. We can specify this in separate properties, like saying outline style like this, and then we put the style to be, let's say we want it to be in inset like this. Let's say we want the outline width. So for the width, you can specify thick, medium, thin, or you can use the length unit of measurement in pixels and other units. So we will use the width. Let's say we want it medium, and then we want the outline color. Let's say we want to have aqua. When I save this and refresh, it's still going to give us similar. Outside of the button, we have this outline. All right. There is a property we call outline offset, and what it does is create a space between the border of the element and then the outline itself. So we'll say outline offset, and we specify, let's say 5 pixels. It will leave a space of 5 pixels between the outline and the element or the element's border. So we'll see that space there. So you can refer to your lesson resource and read more about the outline. This is basically all about it. You can try to apply it to several elements on the web page. Another property we want to look at is the position property, and this position property controls how elements are placed in a web page. Let's say we have this div container. Let's create a style for that. Let's say we want to have this for, let me put the style as container. Let's have the border, and then we'll have the height. So we'll apply this container to this div tag. We want to see that container on the web page here. Now we can see that this container is interfering with the button, but we are going to look at that as we illustrate the position property. Now the position property is used along with the top, left, right, and bottom properties, and we use this to control the flow of elements on a page. Static is the default. So when you specify position, so let's say position, and we put static, this is the default, and the element flow with the normal flow of the page is not affected by the top, left, right, and bottom properties. When I refresh my page, it will remain the same because it automatically applies static even when it's not specified here. When we change this to relative, which is another value, what this does is the element is now positioned relative to the normal flow of the page, and we can move this with the top, left, right, and bottom properties. So let's say this is relative. Let's change this width to 200 pixels and this height to 200 pixels, and let's leave it this way. And when we refresh our page, we still see it this way, and we want to put the top, left, right, and bottom properties to change where this is positioned. So let's say we want top to be, so because we have this button here and we have the container touching the button or overlapping on the button, and then we'll put left of 0. So we want to put the top to be 50 pixels. So the unit of measurement is in pixels, and then the left 0. When we come here and we refresh, we have this not overlapping because we set the top position and then the left position relative to the normal flow of the page. Now we can change this position to absolute, and this is position relative to the nearest position ancestor. So let's say we change this to absolute, and we want this removed from like the normal flow of the page. When we refresh, we'll see how this changes to absolute. So it's position relative to the nearest position ancestor here like this. So let's say we don't have top and left here, it's just the absolute, and we refresh, you will see that it goes back to overlapping until we specify those values. So depending on where on the page or how you want your your layout, you're going to set the values of top and left. When you put top to 0, it means it's starting at the very top of it. So it's going to overlap even more when we leave it at 0 like this. So we can say that like that. Now we can have a position fixed where the element will stay fixed relative to the viewport, and it stays in place when you scroll. So when you have a long page and you have a position fixed, when you scroll, it does not scroll with the page. You can set it with top, bottom, left, right to say where exactly on the page you want it fixed. And then we have sticky also, that acts like the relative until when you scroll, then it sticks like a fixed position. So you want to look at your lesson resource to see examples and try them out and try to apply it. Now, another CSS property that we're going to look at is the overflow property. When we have an element, let me delete this button. When we have an element that is a container, like we have the div tag here on the page, and we have text in this container, sometimes the text is too large for the container and it overflows. So let's put text in it and let's see how to illustrate this. So let's say, so we have this text. Let's refresh our page to see. So we can see that this text is too much for the height of the container and it overflows. We use the overflow property to control how it appears when we have text like this. The default is visible, which is set when we don't specify the overflow property. We can set the overflow property like this. Let's say we want overflow and we set it to hidden. What overflow hidden will do is that the extra content is clipped and it's not going to be visible. So the extra ones are clipped, so you won't see it. When you want it to scroll, then it's going to give you scroll bar on the page. Let's say scroll like this, and when we refresh, you will now have scroll bar that you can scroll. Alright, and when you put auto, it will have scroll bar, but only when it is needed. So when you put scroll bar will always be there whether it's needed or not, but auto will give you scroll bar only when needed. Now we have overflow from left to right, which is horizontal overflow, and we have from top to bottom, which is vertical overflow. We have a property overflow X that we use to control the horizontal from left to right, and overflow Y that we use to control the vertical top to bottom. So you can either use overflow X, overflow Y, and have different values for each of the different direction of the overflow. Alright, but if we want to have, like, we have a long word, and when it sets the overflow property, we want to specify whether the browsers can break lines with long words. So the values that they have are normal, and when it's normal, the long words will not break. Anywhere the long words will break when they overflow the container, and when you say break word, you will have long words will break if they overflow the container. Like we have, let's say, overflow wrap like this, and then you can say break word. So when you have a word that is long and that word overflows, it breaks into a new line because of that overflow wrap property. So you want to read more about the overflow property and look at the other properties that exist, but these are the major ones that you will see from time to time. The display property defines how an element is rendered in like a box type, and whenever we have an element, an HTML element, it is one of two display type. Either it is block, level, or inline. Now we can use the display property to change this from these default display types to several other display types. Now the block level elements are those that whenever you start a new element, it starts on a new line, and the inline ones are the ones that doesn't take up the whole space around it. Whenever you start a new one, it continues from where the last one stops. Okay, there are HTML elements that are inline, like if we use the anchor tag, for instance, to say we want to put a link, let's say click here, and we'll put another anchor tag, let's say click me. Now this is going to appear on the same line because the anchor tag, I'll take this out of the container, sorry, let me take this div tag away. So now we see click here, click me on the same line because the default display of the anchor tag is an inline element. So whenever you start a new one, it continues from where it stops because inline element takes up just as much space as it needs. But when we use like a paragraph tag, which is a block level element, it will always start from a new line every time we start a new paragraph. So look at all the different HTML elements and see which ones are inline and which ones are block. So most elements are classified either inline or block, but when you want to change this default display, we can now change it to several others apart from inline and block. So let's leave this as the anchor tag and let's see how we can use the display property to change this. So when we come to our CSS page and we say we want to say let's use this for the anchor tag, we'll use the HTML element selector and we'll say display. We want to change the display to block, so it's going to change it from inline to block. Okay, so now it's on another line. But if we leave it on the default, we will have it inline like that. All right. We have other values that we can use. You can use inline block, and when you use inline block, it's like inline, but the thing with inline block is that it takes just as much space as is needed, but allows you to add the height and the width to it. Then when you use none, it hides the elements. Like if I say display none, you control the visibility and this will not show on the page. Now when you use display none and it doesn't show on the page, it's removed from the layout and the document and does not take up any space. You can use flex, you can use grid, you can use inline flex, you can use table, table row, table cells. They all behave like table elements. So refer to your lesson resource and research more and see the elements that are inline, the elements that are blocked, and see when you want to change it from the default display to other display types that exist. So we have something we call the Z index, and the Z index is a property that controls the stacking order or the layout of elements on a web page. It controls which element is going to be on top or behind another element, and elements with a higher Z index are always on top of elements with a lower Z index. So let's see how that is done. Let's say on our page we have this div tag. Let's work with this one, and let's say we want to put a style for container. We want to put a style, let's call this box 1 and let's call this box 2. So we're going to create a style container box 1 and box 2. So let's say we have the container style here. Let's create a style for box 1 and let's create a style for box 2. So for the container, we just want to set the position and let's position it relative. For box 1, we want to position it relative also. We want to set the Z index. Let's say we make the Z index to be 1, and then we want to put a border for this box so we can see it on the page. Let's say it's 2px solid and red. Let's say we want to have a height of 300 pixels and we want to have say margin instead of, let's say, 70 pixels. Then for box 2, let's make it have a higher Z index. So position it relative. We are going to have a Z index of, so this was 1, let's make it 2 so it can be higher. Then let's put a background color for it. Let's set it to blue, and then let's put the width. Let's put it in percentage, so it will just be 50% of the relative position. And let's say we want it left, let's make it 270 pixels. We want let's say top. Let's use a negative value for top so it can overlap, and so we can see clearly which is on top and which is below. So we use the background color so that we can really see and make it opaque so we can see when it's on top and when it's behind. So say minus 25 pixels, and then we have the height, and we'll set this to 150 pixels. Okay, let's stop here and let's refresh our page and see that. So we have these containers like this. They are not positioned, or they are not stacking on top of themselves. So let's see how we can these styles to make sure that they overlap themselves. So we have top minus, so let's do top minus 250 pixels, and let's see if this works. Let's remove the body margin and let's go there. So we have it. Now this container is inside, is on top of this other container there. If we make it go to like maybe the border, let's see how we can make this that way. Let's say minus 500 pixels. So we can see now that when it's on top of the other container, you can't see that part of the container because this has a higher Z index of 2, and so the other elements with the lower Z index goes behind it. But if we make this Z index from 1 to 3 to be higher than this, then we'll see the red line will pass through the blue container visibly like that. So any element that has the higher Z index is going to be on top of the other elements, and the one with the lower Z index will be beneath. So refer to your lesson resource, and whenever you want to put this, you have to put your values relative, set your top and your bottom or left and right values based on where you want it positioned on the web page. So this is where we end this week's lesson. Thank you and see you next week.